If you're like me, when it's finally time for that cruise, you can't wait to start the party. But I've seen too many cruisers make some simple mistakes that can turn that dream vacation into a nightmare. After decades of cruising, I have learned, sometimes the hard way, 11 embarkation day mistakes that can cost you time, money, and even ruin your cruise. Well, today I'm going to tell you exactly what these mistakes are and, more importantly, how to avoid them. And never do number 11 because it could cost you big. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you fresh cruise advice, money-saving hacks, and secret strategies the cruise lines don't advertise. A couple of years ago, a good friend of mine went on a cruise that he'd been planning for well over a year, and it sort of turned into a nightmare because of a simple mistake that he made. And one of his suitcases didn't even make it on the ship. So when you get your cruise luggage tags, these days they're mostly sent out electronically. You have to fold them and put them around one of your suitcase handles and attach them with a stapler. Well, he didn't use a stapler, maybe he didn't have one. Instead, he took a piece of tape, and apparently it didn't adhere that well to one of the luggage tags, and it must have fallen off somewhere because that suitcase ended up staying at the cruise terminal in the lost and found for his entire vacation. A lot of these cruise terminals are very busy with many different ships leaving on the same day, and those luggage tags are key for telling these porters where these bags need to go, and then once on board, what room they need to go to. And if you end up with a suitcase with a tag that has fallen off, it definitely won't make it to your room, but it might not even make it on your ship. My easy solution for this is always use a stapler. Once you put that tag around your luggage handle, staple it together 4 or 5 times. I always do this multiple times. There's no way that tag is falling off. And just to be sure, I put 2 tags on every suitcase. So normal suitcases have 2 handles, one at the top and one on the side. I'll make sure I've got a tag through both handles, and that way should some freak accident happen and one gets sheared off, there's still another one and that bag is not going to get lost. And while a missing tag might keep your luggage off the cruise, this next mistake could keep you off the cruise. This one sounds so simple to me, but there are still a number of people every year that don't make their cruise because they make this mistake. And that is to not have your travel documents on your person. You cannot pack your travel documents in your luggage. Once you give that bag to the porter, you may not find that bag again. And if you realize that your travel documents are in there, you won't be able to check in and you won't be able to board the ship. This just recently happened to a teenager who was going on a group trip with a chaperone, and he had packed his passport in his suitcase, gave it to the porter, and then when they went to check in, they wouldn't check him in. They couldn't find his suitcase. It was already being put on the ship. They couldn't go and pull it out. He ended up having to miss that cruise. His parents had to drive back down and pick him up from the cruise terminal because he couldn't make the cruise. And if you think that's a silly reason to miss your cruise, wait until you hear this next mistake. I'm usually a pretty early person, so when I get to a cruise, I'm either there right on time or before my scheduled boarding time. A lot of times, they don't even make you wait. You can just get right on the ship. But there's a lot of cruisers that show up late, and sometimes a little too late. One easy mistake to make is to assume that the time of departure is the time you have to be there before. But that's not true. If your cruise is departing at 5 o'clock, you need to be there at least by 3. I wouldn't risk it any closer than that because some cruises will close the boarding process 2 hours before departure. Other cruise lines, it'll be like 1 hour, maybe 90 minutes. It just depends, and it can change. There's a fairly simple solution. Everybody is given a specific embarkation time. Now you can go early and you might be able to get on board early, but don't go late. Even though you can still get on board if there's still boarding, if you go too late and you don't really know when that cutoff is, you could be denied boarding and miss the ship, and they will not budge if they've closed embarkation because they have to do all kinds of paperwork with the government and the ship manifest, and they will not open that process again once they've closed it and started doing that paperwork. And then once you are on board, this next set of mistakes can cause some major headaches. If you've been cruising before, I'm curious to know, what is the first thing you do once you're allowed into your cruise cabin? Put it in the comments below. Because the first thing that I always do is check the AC and make sure it's working. Turn it down as cold as it gets, wait a few minutes, and make sure you're getting cold air out of the vent. Because if you're not, it could be a problem, and it's something you'll have to monitor. There's nothing worse than being stuck in a cruise cabin in the Caribbean and the AC is not working properly. It can get pretty hot and stuffy in those rooms without a functioning unit. So I always check this first because I want to be the first on the list to get it fixed if there's a problem. And in some cases, they might have to move you to another room if that system can't be fixed, and you want to be the first one on the list to be moved if that needs to happen. Now, they might tell you that it doesn't get fully cold until the ship starts moving, and there is some truth to that, but at least report it and then monitor it. And if it doesn't get better later on, once that ship departs, make sure you call again and remind them that it's a problem. And then this next thing I always check is probably even more important than the AC. I have been on a number of cruises and I've never had a problem with bed bugs, but that doesn't mean I don't check. It's actually one of the first things I check when I get into my cruise ship cabin because it is a problem you do not want to have. This is a problem that can infest your clothes, your suitcase. It can cause skin rashes, skin bites. And there was a couple recently who had a problem on a Royal Caribbean ship, and they didn't report it till like the third day because they didn't know what was causing them to have outbreaks on their skin. And then they finally thought to check under the bed, and it was quite obvious they had an infestation. So it can happen. It is rare, but you definitely want to check. All you need to do, if you do bring a little flashlight with you on board, you can just pull up that mattress very quickly and flash the light under there. If you see any movement or any black dots, you probably have a problem. And the other thing you can do is you can quickly rip back the covers, and you should see some movement or some black dots on the mattress, and that's another sign. So under the mattress or above the mattress, you'll see something if there's a problem. And I see so many cruisers just jump into their room as soon as it's available for 2 seconds, drop their stuff, and get back out and get on with their cruise. But I spend a little more time checking everything else out, making sure that everything functions. All the lights turn on, the TV turns on, the hairdryer works, the water comes on and it drains in the sink, because these are common issues. You can have clogged drains pretty easily, and there's nothing worse than waiting until day 2, figuring out that there's a problem with something and not really sure if you should report it or not. And then day 3, you're really getting sick of it. So you report, hey, the sink doesn't drain. And then maybe it takes them 2 more days to fix it. Well, your cruise is more than half over by then. If you report it the first day, most likely it's going to be fixed right away, because that's when they're in port and that's when they're handling all kinds of issues, and you're probably the first and maybe the only one to report a problem. And before you decide to leave that cabin, don't make this next mistake. I get it. You're on vacation, it's embarkation day, and you're all excited, and most cruisers are. But too many cruisers just walk right past the room steward on this day. They don't introduce themselves, they don't find out who it is, and that can be a problem during your cruise. Not that your room steward really cares, but if you introduce yourself on embarkation day, learn his name, learn his schedule, you'll get better service and you'll know where he's going to be and how to get in touch with him if you need anything during your cruise. For one thing, I always like to have a bucket of ice in my room. So that first day, I'll let him know that. I'll even give him a $20 bill as a tip and ask him to please keep fresh ice in my room. it's in there every day after that. Cabin stewards really want you to have a great cruise. They want to know what your preferences are and anything that you need. And by introducing yourself on that first day, you kind of establish a brief connection. Not everybody does this. In fact, most people don't. So you'll be the one he remembers. And when you need something, you'll probably get better service. And we all really want to enjoy that first day of the cruise, but there's a few mistakes that can kind of ruin it. One of the first cruises that I went on, I just walked onto the cruise with my documents in hand and not much else. I checked everything. I thought this is going to be fun. Somebody's going to handle all my bags for me and I'm not going to carry a thing. Well, I still wanted to go and enjoy the pool deck and the sun that first day, and I got a major sunburn because I had packed my sunscreen. When you go on a cruise, you need a carry-on bag that you carry on the ship with you that has things like this. Don't get a sunburn on that first day of your cruise because it not only will hurt that first day, it could carry on for 3 or 4 days and kind of make that cruise less enjoyable. So have that sunscreen in your carry-on bag. Put other things in there that you might need that first day before the evening time because it could be 4 or 5 o'clock before you get your suitcases. It just really depends, but there's no guarantee you're going to get them earlier than that. And this next mistake will not only ruin your cruise, but it could have you going viral on social media. But first, if you're thinking of booking a cruise, we maintain an up-to-date list of the best cruise deals you can book right now. If you'd like a copy, just comment deals and I'll email it to you, or click the deals link in our description and we'll send it to you. When it's time to get on that cruise ship, I'm ready to go. I want to start my vacation off right. Sit down by the pool, grab a drink or two, and just relax. But I have seen passengers in the past not pace themselves well. And this could be a big problem because there are documented cases of cruise lines kicking off passengers before the ship even leaves the port because they got inebriated, started acting belligerently, in some cases even caused some fights. I'm sure you've all seen these examples on social media. This can happen on that first day because you're really getting into that party mood. The music's playing, everybody's dancing, it's a crowd, a party environment. You just have to be careful and watch yourself so that you don't go too far and cause yourself a problem or end up on social media because you did something bad. And if you haven't done it before the cruise, make sure you download that cruise app before your ship leaves, especially if you didn't purchase the Wi-Fi package. Because once you're out to sea, you won't be able to download it anymore. And you really should have it downloaded and start making key reservations that you're going to want, whether it be for restaurants, shows, on your app. Most cruise lines allow you to do this, and you want to be early in doing this. Some things you can reserve before you even get to your cruise, but a lot of those reservation slots don't open up until the day of the cruise. So the first ones on with the app making reservations are going to be the first ones that get into those coveted shows or those coveted events or even the coveted restaurants. Now, there is a way around the app. You can actually go to guest services or go directly to restaurants and make reservations or change reservations right there. But the app is just a lot more convenient. However you do it, anything that's important to you, get to making those reservations early so that you make sure you get a spot. And this last mistake costs a lot of cruisers big money. I'll tell you about that next. But first, if you would take a moment, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It does help us grow and will continue to bring you cruising updates. Back when I first started cruising, you never had to worry about electronics. We didn't even have cell phones back then. But these days, with all the advancement in technology, it can be a big problem if you don't put your phone on airplane mode when your cruise is leaving. And this is because you're going to be in the middle of the ocean, and you're also going to be near a lot of foreign lands, foreign countries, where your cell service could pick up on a roaming carrier and automatically connect. You could be downloading data, you could be taking calls, and not realizing that you're actually on a roaming network. That could cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars when you get back home and check your phone bill. Now, this is less of a problem for people who have a pay-as-you-go carrier. But if you have one of the major carriers like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, you want to make sure you do this so that you don't get stuck. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen. And there's still cases being reported by news organizations and even on social media where cruisers got back home and never realized they were racking up all of these charges. By avoiding these simple mistakes, I know you're going to have an awesome cruise. But there are a lot of cruisers out there overpaying for things once they're on board. I'll tell you how to avoid that right here.